Constructing your life is about much more than just building a bank account. Each week, join real estate entrepreneur and mindset coach Austin Linney as he interviews guests who are constructing their dream lives and impacting the world around them on a daily basis. If you're an entrepreneur or wanting to start a business, or you just want to hear motivating stories of how others have overcome the odds, you are in the right place. And now for your host, Austin Linney.
Guys, welcome back to Construct Your Life. This is Austin Linney here, and I have one half of the famous. I mean, y'all might as well be famous. You're everywhere. You got a great marketing team, or y'all crush it. We have Dave in the house. How are you doing, Dave?
Hey, Austin. Yeah, no, thanks for having us. Mel couldn't make it, so we had to divide and conquer. But no, amazing. Thanks for having us on.
Exactly. So before we get into real estate and your story, one of the jokes: why are Canadians so nice?
I don't know. I don't know what it is. I know a lot of people.
You're like, I know a bunch of people that aren't that nice.
That's what I was going to say. I was like, I guess maybe in I don't know, on the greater spectrum of it. But it's funny. I've been on other podcasts too. Like, yeah, you Canadians, you're just so happy and nice. I'm like, I don't know. What is there to be mad about? I don't know.
So this is great. So, I follow you from afar. I've seen some stuff and I've read about your story, but I don't truly know your story. So what I like to do is you start your story wherever you want to, and we'll go from there.
Okay. No, super cool. So yeah, Mel and I basically were in North Bay, Ontario, Canada, probably somewhere no one's ever heard of. It's, if you're looking at it, it's like three hours north of Toronto, basically. So that's all people really typically need to know. Humble beginnings, right? Mel, we grew up in a small little town that didn't even have street lights. I grew up with a single mom, didn't have much money, so definitely didn't have what's that saying, silver spoon or whatever you call it. But Mel went to school for marketing, which is maybe why you see us. Hopefully it's working. And I went to school for firefighting. So I was a firefighter, and she worked at the local college. We always had a thing for real estate. And when we got together, we just decided to really excel it. The only reason people know about us is because we had a crazy car crash just outside of Toronto, 2018 now. Yeah, 2018, almost died, right? Rolled on the highway in our Suburban, but we weren't driving. And that's when we decided, you know what, no more scarcity mindset. Let's start showing people how to do this, and let's start getting vocal about it. And yeah, so that's kind of a quick and dirty explanation of the trajectory.
I think where I'm at in my journey, while we're changing the narrative, we're running a private equity fund, basically now buying businesses and investing in real estate. I guess, and you talk on a lot of podcasts and you're around. I guess the bigger issue I have that we're putting out there in the market is that, you have to go all in. You got to buy 90 houses a year. Like, what I'm trying to do is get back. Like, we've yelled at the W-2 job, but here's the rub. My joke is I can't get finance for a canoe right now because I own my own businesses. There is something to be said to be building on the side with a great W-2 and that salary, and then, put a game plan together, which I'm sure y'all did, and not just, do everything the podcast say.
Yeah, I love that you said that, Austin, and it is true. In Canada, W-2 is a T4, same difference. But I literally remember Mel and I reverse engineering it and going to the financial institutions and all that, and saying, okay, we're building a portfolio. You're looking at our income somewhat here. What if we were to remove that income? How many assets would I need to have? What would my TDI and all the ratios need to look like? Like, what, and kind of building out that plan. It wasn't just, hey, I'm quitting my job tomorrow. We have 3 kids, so it wasn't like that. And so yeah, there was a plan. The other thing you mentioned, and I love that you said this, Austin, I still remember our first podcast. We're like, we're going to have 1,000 units, right? We were pumped, and right. And that was our goal back then. And as you start going along, it's like, okay, check the ego at the door. It doesn't matter how many units you have. Yeah, it's fun having a lot of units and it makes more money. But at some point, there's that teeter-totter of how much time, effort, how much money you're making, what's it sacrificing. And I know you can have people in place and all that, but it's again, reverse engineering. How much money do I want? How much money do I need? How many assets? What's the least amount of assets I can have that give me that? And take the least amount of my time. No, I agree with you. 100% on that.
As I coach people, there's a term that I've kind of brought into my own life. It's called plateau thinking, and it's a kind of a framework to say, you say that you want, and I could talk about this in the Airbnb space. You say that you want 1,000 units. How about we get to 10 units, and then you decide whether or not you want to go for the 30. Like we're trying to create a life. I was just talking to a client about this today. We've created a space, especially with this market. AI technology, all the things that are coming up. Like the new word in business is, can you pivot?
Yeah.
Can you pivot? The mindset, the market's changing. We used to be able to see it and go, okay, there's market cycles. Now it's just like, well, I don't know what it's going to be. And I think people need to like these old ways of thinking and just kind of create a framework. I base my life off of values, how I'm going to show up for everybody. And then the results will just take care of itself. I think that's an easier way to go about life and drop down the stress.
Yeah, and I forget where Mel found it. She said this to me a couple weeks ago now, and it's so true. And how does she say it? Every level has a new devil. Like, and just the pivoting thing. It's just like when we self-managed, it was just this, and then when we outsourced, it was that, and then we went different countries. It was like it's just yeah. But if you can pivot and get good at it and know like, hey, we're diving into something new here. We don't know yet. There's going to be an issue some way, but
yeah, no, sorry, I don't know why it did that.
all good.
So yeah, and I think what's interesting, right? And you educate people, you teach people. What would you say the top 3 things or top 2 things are they? Um, the myths they have starting in real estate that are just not true.
I think like I was just on I was just doing something this morning, and a lot of the things that came up, the similarities is, do I have to invest in my in my backyard? I want to live here, but the market doesn't make sense for my goals. So it's just the huge mindset and the comfort level too. Like live where you want, but invest where returns are best for your goals, right? So that's like the first one that I see a lot of, and I was guilty of it too. Like, so I completely understand. They get in the mindset of some people think they have to start off with like, actually I got this question today again. They have to start off with like a single family home or a duplex, and it's like, well, again, it's your own comfort. What's the difference between a duplex and an 8-plex or a 10-plex or a 20? Like, there's some differences, obviously. I know I'm kind of be sarcastic, but you're still going to have an inspection and an inspection. You're still going to have, call the insurance provider, call the insurance, get financing, get like, you know what I mean? Like, so it's obviously the deal by deal scenario, but the difference between a duplex and a 5-plex is, it's all pretty much here, right? There's some nuances, but you're doing a lot of the same things. So just kind of.
I had Brandon Turner said that what he used to do is just leave off a 0, so he didn't get stressed out. And I was like, I love that. It's like, because what I found is like when you reach those new plateaus, those new levels, when you go that far, you can't go backwards. And so the question is, if you say in your mind, I'm only going to buy 3 single family homes, what happens to your whole trajectory if you buy a triplex on your first deal?
Yeah.
Right? Changes everything. You don't got to wait 3 years. Now you're already in the game.
Exactly. And some people, on kind of that subject, Austin, is some people I find they get they'll kind of be they're like, I have to have a big deal. I have to have 5 units and over. I have to have a 10-plex. And it's like, well, again, back to not the amount of doors, but the cash flow that it gives you. Like Mel and I quit our jobs on duplexes and triplexes, right? So again, it was the cash flow that they made, not the amount of doors that they had. So it's just kind of, it's not black and white. It's not, one size fits all, basically.
For anybody that's out there who's dreaming, right? They're listening to this, driving to work, or they're listening to this in an office in a cubicle. What was that day like for you when you finally got to like, and here's what I think is interesting. I'd love to hear your answer. It's not that you're working less, you're probably working more, but like, what was that day when you finally took control of your life completely?
Yeah, it was definitely, and I had a great job. Like I was a firefighter, right? Like that was my dream since I was the ninth grade. Like it was absolutely like, I remember I was going to get like a big Maltese cross on my chest when I met Mel. And like, she's like, maybe just wait, you might not love this the rest of your life. And I was like, no, I'm all in. I'll be a fire. Like, anyway, I still remember it was a slow, like, again, there were ups and downs, right? There's times at the fire department where it's gangbusters and things are going terrible, and you're at a 12 out of 10, right? And there's some times where you're washing you're washing the same truck again. That's, you know what I mean? Where it's monotonous task and it's like, oh, I can't do this anymore. So again, it's the good and the bad, but giving my, resignation, quitting, whatever you want, retiring, whatever you want to call it, was bittersweet. It was like a really good feeling, like, hey, no more night shifts. I get to see the kids all the time. I don't have to work Christmas. I don't like all that stuff. But then it was bittersweet because you have some good friends and I'm still friends with them. But it was definitely an amazing feeling knowing that something that we built, and it was after the car crash that we actually both quit. So something that we built, something that we created, like a portfolio and creating that cash flow every month, is now going to take care of us and our kids. Like it was kind of like mind blowing that that it's doable. You know what I mean? That it's not, people don't talk about it, right? And it's like, hey, you can actually do this. So it was a pretty cool feeling.
The number one thing that I see in people as they try we can talk about not loving yourself, we can talk about having bad parents, we can talk about addiction, right? All those things carry their own weight. One of the hardest things I've seen is I've worked with my clients transitioning from W2 identity and mindset to business owner. I believe that gap is one of the hardest that exist out there personally. I just think it's like one of those things that creates this like a Grand Canyon chasm, really. I mean, that's really what it is. I mean, it's so hard to describe to people that haven't done it, but like, I'm like, are you outsourcing? Are you delegating? Like, are you like, what's going on here? And they're just like so stuck in I got to do it. And that's just where that W2, have you seen that too with the people that you're coaching and educating?
Yes. And yeah, some people think, yeah, I kind of see it. I like what you're saying, like, because it's true. They think they have to do everything. Well, I'm good at renovations, so I should be doing it so I can save X amount of dollars, or I'm good at this, so I should. And it's like, okay, well, again, you might be the best at doing it in your opinion, but you can't do it all. So if you want to scale and do it, then yeah, you're gonna have to outsource. The other thing I've noticed too was, and this is kind of opposite of what I just said, is that you're gonna have to do it, is when you're the safety net, meaning you're the go-to, like it's your place, it's your responsibility, like that. The Grand Canyon thing you were saying, the difference, the thing I see the most between T4 and W2 employees and then the entrepreneurs, that is that at the end of the day, you're on the hook, you're on the line. The property manager quits today, well, guess what, you're answering the phone with the tenants, right? Like that building doesn't go away. Like, so, or whereas employees, like, hey, if it doesn't happen, they look to their boss and go, now what, this is your problem, right? Or they go to the so it's just, I find that's the biggest thing, is you have to understand there's going to be some times that are gonna suck. Like it is what it is. But then there's going to be amazing times where you don't have a boss. So that's the biggest I find, is, are you willing to accept? And Gary Vee says it all the time. You're going to have to eat some, sandwiches sometimes, right? It is what it is, but
Well,
it's still better, right?
well, I was visiting my coach in Costa Rica, and he said, "You know what entrepreneurship is?" And I'll keep my mouth a little dry, not as worse as I normally do. He said it's like sitting at the kitchen table and eating a what sandwich, a whole bowl of it, and then after you get finished, they serve you another one, and then you eat the whole bowl. And he's like, then they serve you another one, and he's like, now you've understood what entrepreneurship is. But the joke is like, I'd rather work 100 hours for myself than 40 hours for somebody. It's the truth, right? And so, where does you and your wife's portfolio sit right now? What type of investments are y'all into, and where is it headed?
Yeah, we love the how do we say it? Like, we're kind of doing the same thing, keeping the same thing, the no joint venture partners, the using creative financing, but diversifying within that, right? So obviously we're in Canada, we're in the US. I'm liking more and more, kind of up your alley, the short-term rentals, right? Like we have places in Costa and Mexico and Dominican, and now it's like, what's the next country to go into? And the cool thing is, I like that you said Costa Rica. we've only been once, and we had bought properties before going. We're actually going in, I don't know, like 15 days from now. And it's
Okay.
just that, it's that kind of entrepreneur thing, right? Like we're taking our little guy, he's 8, right? We're going to be going on a trip with him. His older sisters are in high school. They don't want to miss school. So it's just the 3 of us. But then in the morning, are we still going to crush business? Yeah, because it is what it is, right? But then all afternoon, we're going to do what we want. And so where was I going with that? Oh, the beauty of having properties in other places. So kind of, it's going to be a write-off. We're going to meet the property managers while we're there. We're going to check up on our properties, maybe look at some other ones. So it's just kind of the beauty of having different types of assets in different places. So that's kind of like, I find that exciting now. I find the different countries and traveling.
Yeah.
That's what
it's the only thing. Yeah, it's the only thing. Everybody's like, because we spend 90% of the year traveling, and everybody's like, where are you going to settle down? I'm like, well, it's going to be about 6 places, and we're just going to rotate around. But it's funny, last time I was in Costa Rica, I happened to meet a lady who had like 5,000 acres in a hotel, and she like, we drove me around. Everybody's like sending me DMs. They're like, why don't you just relax? And I'm like, I am relaxed. This is
amazing.
a blast.
Yeah.
Like, I'm like, they had future plans for a development. It didn't go through, but there was still, I was like, this is amazing. Like, and people, like, if you do what you love, like, I'm not going to say the stupid saying, but what I'm saying is I enjoy just connecting with people, understanding the different aspects of their real estate, what matters to them, and kind of understanding. It's so much fun.
Well, okay, in Austin, let's think about that. The W-2 employee thinks, why are you working right now? Like, what do you go chill on a beach? And the entrepreneur's like, I am chilling. This is amazing. I'm getting a portfolio walkthrough on vacation. And like, you know what I mean? Like that's the mindset. I'm the same way. Last time we were there, the real estate agent was like, let's just go for a walk. And they were trying to sell me this restaurant with short-term rentals up top. And I'm like, I'm trying to do the numbers. I'm like, how am I going to make this work? And anyway, but it's the exact same scenario where, but that was fun. That was an awesome day. I spent all day going down the rabbit hole. How am I going to run a restaurant? Like, which doesn't make sense, but it was an awesome day.
No, and somebody who spent 20 years in hotels and restaurants, run the other way. Okay, so like, you can do short-term rentals all you want.
I didn't buy it. Don't worry, we'll talk some comments.
Because here's the deal: I know that I'm going to open one because I used to be a chef and I sold wine and I'm a master bartender. I know all that, but I'm going to do it when I have so much money that I love burning money. That's basically, it's more of a storytelling masterpiece. There's going to be no menus. It's only going to be open 2 days a week. Like, cool. Like I already, like the whole thing, right? So when have you scaled up to the large apartment complexes, or have y'all stayed in the multifamily? Have you done the big stuff?
Yeah, good question. Our biggest is a 50.
Because you're not using any outside partners. So okay. So there you go. And for everybody that's listening, because I don't use any of my own money with anything, any of the businesses we buy. So I'm different. I'll have my own investments on my own side. What was the decision for you and your wife to do that? Because I have an interesting comment on the back of this. It just happened Friday.
Like to not have any joint venture partners?
Yeah.
Honestly, it was a little bit of everything. It was like, okay, how do I say this? I had seen some people or some situations where they had turned to turmoil. It was a little bit of everything. I knew my personality and Mel's personality. It's like, I don't know if we'd be able to go in with other, you know what I mean? And kind of have that, that kind of mindset and all that. And then it was also a little bit of people saying we couldn't do it. I was like, okay, like challenge accepted, right? People saying the only way you can scale is if you have partners. And I was like, but I don't want them. Like, well, you can't do it. And I remember thinking there has to be another way. Like, why? Yeah, challenge accepted. So a little bit of those 3 things were kind of what drove it. Yeah.
So I went to go visit. I live out in the hill country in Texas right now, and I ran into a buddy who's a big apartment syndicator, who's written a book. I'll keep his name to himself. He's a friend, big in the space. Everybody knows him. I met him on his farm that he just bought, like 18 acres. Nice. And I said, hey man, what's going on? And he goes, I'm selling it all of it. And I was like, what? And he's like, I'm selling it all and we're recalibrating the portfolio. And I was like, why? And he's like, I'm done with investors. I'm done answering their phone calls. I'm done. They're bothering me to death. He goes, I'm done. He goes, I'm selling it all. We're going to recalibrate in a different, and it was like, every time I get on the golf course with all my buddies who are all on social media and all have podcasts, we only talk about there's only one thing we talk about. Do you really have to scale to scale? Like, and one of my friends, one of my ex-clients who I coached for a year, he has a great business. He wholesales probably 40 a year, buys, a couple duplexes and a couple single families, right? So he just left his job. He created like 250 grand first year net, right? Himself.
Nice.
And he was like, I need to go buy 1,000 units and I need to go do this. And I'm like, okay, that's a possibility. That's great. But you have 2 young kids. I was like, if you had this year that you had, if you had that same year for 25 years, I did the math. I was like, you would be generating 350 grand a month net free cash.
Nice.
No debt. And I said, he's like, well, that sounds pretty great.
Yeah.
And I was like, yeah. And were you able to run your races? Were you able to see your family? Yeah, of course. Okay. Then why do we need to scale? And it's like one of my favorite things to have you make, to not make the decision. I feel like the decisions that are put in front of us are because we read a book or this is what we said we got to do. And it's like, I'm with you, man. If you met me 4 years ago, I'm going to own the most single family, residents that exist in the planet. And that was because I wanted to prove my dad wrong. And when that went away, I was like, oh, what do I really want? And like, that's the question I wish people would ask themselves.
You gave me goosebumps there, man, when you said that. No, you're bang on, Austin. And I think it's the conversations that Mel and I have had when no one else is around. And again, I still love buying real estate. I still want to continue building a portfolio, but it's that $1,000 mark, the $1,000 mark where I'm like, it was just, again, because it's the entrepreneurship and sometimes you're left holding the bag and you're having the sandwich or the bowl, right? And it's like, okay, what do we really need to live comfortably and live a good lifestyle? And let's do that. And then if we want to buy other stuff and do other stuff, it's for fun. It's for pleasure, right? It's still exciting. It's still thrilling, but it's not yeah, no, I agree with you. I'm glad you brought this up today. It's a really important fact that people overlook.
Well, my number one thing, I coach a lot of men, especially 36 and up, and they play this game. They play this game. Oh, well, they look around at their family and they go, I'm doing it for you. And they look back and go, we didn't ask you. Okay. But here's what you can do to change the narrative. You can own it and say, I need this. And then you can restructure your life. Look, we're probably going to buy 100+ companies. It's going to be crazy town. Like, I'm fully aware of that. But I had a good 6 months with myself to say, okay, you were a raging alcoholic. You're 4 years sober. All you care about is creating jobs and impact. Is this what you want? And I said, yeah, this is what I want. But all you have is 10 years. So I turned 40 2 weeks ago. At 50 years old, I'm going to disappear for like 6 months to 8 months. I'm just going to, literally, I'm going to drop off the face of the planet.
Nice.
And I'm going to take a minute with my family and my wife. And I'm going to say, okay. What is it that you want to do now? Because now this is a different phase of your life. And here's the crazy thing. The only reason why we're buying the business is to create an entrepreneurship school. What's crazy is I dropped out of college 3 times, and yet I want to educate for the rest of my life. I think it's like, how could you write a most ridiculous script, right? And I think when what the biggest issue I have is that life is based in seasons. Who you were before your wreck and who you are after are 2 totally different people. And so you have to respect the seasons.
I agree with you. And the previous season wasn't wrong either, right? It is what it is. No, I like that, Austin. That's really deep, man. I like that. That makes 100% sense.
Because where I have an issue is everything is predicated on identity, right? So like I'm, my great grandfather worked for Budweiser from 1791, right? Retired 5 times, right? That's all he knew, right? But there was a study that came out a year ago that a millennial is going to have 19 different jobs before 19. And so we can't base our identity like our grandparents anymore. You can't get it out of how much money I make. You know how sick I am of hearing about unit counts? Like I don't. And so like we have to find, and what y'all have, the education that you're giving to people, the content you're putting out, like that's more fulfillment based than it is, so you're juggling both sides of the coin because, let's be honest, putting a podcast together, education, like that's work, even though people might, oh, it's fun, and so when you start shifting the narrative around, you can kind of create that why and it gets super big and then it just keeps building on itself.
Yeah, well, that's awesome. I agree with you 100%, man.
So what do you teach? This is my favorite thing that I'm into right now. Because I met this kid that blew me away. You have to meet this kid. He's 13 and he's a millionaire. He bought his first property at 7 and he owns 66 units. His whole family is, his younger brother has 33 units. He's 10. So yeah,
Wow.
they're trip. What do you tell your kids? You have a couple older kids, you have a younger son. Kind of what's the narrative around the household when it comes to real estate, personal development, stuff like that as a parent?
Yeah, and I try, how do I say this? I've had in the last 2 years, I had a lot of succession planning, and I met with the lawyers and the trusts and all that stuff, and it came down to some really blunt conversations with the lawyers, and they were just like, you want that for them, like you want, because like kind of like what you said, right? Like, hey
Yeah.
kids, I'm doing this for you, and he was like, hey, but the kids aren't you and Mel, like you want to leave them a port, and it was just like, oh, they might not, like in my head, I'm like, who wouldn't want a portfolio? Like what? They're like, they might not want this, they might not want, they said they might just liquidate everything when you pass away and you've worked, and they might just want to check, like 50 cents on the dollar, get the, like, anyway, it was basically, so I've been trying not to like I talk about real estate, but I try not to preach it too much, so that I want them to come around to it and love it. And if they don't, that's cool. But so when I talk about real estate, I just want a couple of key things. And from Rich Dad Poor Dad, like I just want them to I just don't want them to end in the rat race and miserable and hating their lives and going, what did I do? Like, I just want them to understand liabilities and assets. Like I just explained to them, like sometimes we're driving, like, what's that? What, like, just so they get some key concepts, which is not rocket science. And just when we're having some awesome moments or we're doing it, I'll just kind of say again, guys, and they kind of know when the conversation's coming, I'll just say, mom and I work, we like, we work hard, we play harder. Like, you guys know, like the Costa Rica trip, like it's the buildings that pay for this, right? Like, you guys understand that? Like, we don't report anywhere at Monday, 9 to 5. Like, I just want them to understand that, so that like they're going, like the ones going to college next year for graphic design. And I just have fun, because kind of like you said, it might not be your end job. So do what you want to do the next 3 years. And yeah, so I try and give them life experience. I want them to understand concepts, but I'm trying not to be that person or that dad that just, this is what you're going to do and this is how you're going to end up, and you're going to be in the bit and you're going to take over my portfolio. So I just don't want real estate to be a negative. If they come to it, cool. If not, and cool. Like, and I'll leave you a portfolio, and if you sell it, it is what it is. Take the money and do what you love. So anyway, that's kind of, the lawyers woke something up in me.
No, it's so hard as a parent, I mean, it's so hard, I watch it every day with my friends' kids, and like my thing is like, I give them, all of them, like rich kid, poor kid, for Christmas. And I'm like, your gifts are fine, but this thing right here will be better for you, and it's just so important to pass it on. If people want to find out more about you and Mel and your story, where do they go?
Yeah, social media, it's always at Investor Mel Dave. Oh gosh, Mel usually has the links. I'll have to give it to you after. Austin, Mel usually memorizes the links and knows where to.
No, you're good. You're good.
But all handles, yeah, at Investor Mel Dave.
Wonderful. Well, I appreciate it. I try to do every interview in a different topic than you typically have to regurgitate for about 70 episodes. So I hope that we talked about some stuff and hit on some things that were a little different today. So it's great.
Yeah, this is not where I thought the conversation was going, but it was awesome, Austin.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, guys. If you got some value from this, send it to a friend, and we'll see you next time.